What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and usually Christmas time, the end of December, is a happy, positive time of year. Unless you're Nintendo for some reason, because as of the little slip with their online subscription service potentially being delayed until the end of next year instead of the start of next year, they've actually come out and announced something else that's pretty negative, and I'm going to talk about it here anyway. But Nintendo have actually fully delayed and officially delayed the rollout of their 64 gigabyte game cards to publishers and developers until 2019. Now, real quick, before we go any further, just to give you a comparison, the Nintendo Switch game cards as they are at the moment are available in multiple different sizes. They come in 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 and 32 gigabyte. However, as you get up in the sizes, the price significantly increases. A lot of developers who should be using 32 gigabyte cards, because they're more expensive to actually use and produce, and Nintendo's licensing fee and all for them, they actually opt to use 16 gigabyte cards or maybe even 8 gigabyte cards and force you to download large chunks of the game separately, taking up your memory on your Nintendo Switch, for which there's very, very little of it on as it is, or forcing you to buy additional expanded storage in the case of micro SD cards. In fact, there are games out there at the moment that are actually so big they don't fit on the Nintendo Switch at all digitally, and even if you buy a physical game card version, the actual download portion you need is so significant that you are still required to buy a micro SD card. And the thing about it is this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to persist over time, because Nintendo is one part of the actual gaming landscape, we'll call it. They're basically a quarter. Now, I'm not giving into market share or influence or sales or anything. The simple reason is there's 4 main platforms. There's Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Nintendo. 75% of this entire landscape is far ahead of Nintendo in this aspect. They're using better versions of distribution, better versions of media. For example, the Xbox One and PS4 discs can hold up to 50 gigabytes. Granted, some of those games do get large patches and large DLCs and whatever, but the point is that the base game as it stands will fit on the disc. So what does this mean anyway? Well, before we get into that, there is one other thing to note as well, that a 64 gigabyte game card for the Nintendo Switch will be significantly more expensive, and a lot of developers and publishers will probably be hesitant to use that because it will add an increased price to actually selling their game. Or maybe not an increased price, but maybe it will cut down their profit margin, something they're possibly not willing to do. We've already seen games, multiple different games from multiple different publishers at this point, release on Nintendo Switch and force what's been called colloquially as a Switch tax. Because of the higher game card production and licensing costs, developers will charge more for the Nintendo Switch version of their game just to maintain the same level of profit. So you have a game coming out at €40 on Xbox One and €40 on PS4, probably about €35 on PC because PC games are slightly cheaper. That is assuming you don't go and buy a code dirt cheap, which many people do. But just for the purposes of this video, I'm just including it as the base standard Steam price. And then you have the Nintendo Switch version, which costs €50, more expensive than every other version. And just for the sake of it, I'll throw it in there, that will look and perform worse. Now, it's been reported that this information was given out to many different developers and publishers throughout the world, and that specifically a lot of US and Western based developers are actually unhappy with this. Because let's face it, a lot of developers these days, at least big developers, are making games which are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 gigabytes. Let's look at the upcoming Final Fantasy 15 PC version. That game is 144 gigabytes. That's over 4 times the internal storage of a Switch. Technology marches forward, people, and Nintendo are getting left behind yet again. That's a game that won't even fit. Now, forget the performance side of it, but the game just still will literally not fit on one of the most common used micro SD cards for Nintendo Switch, 128 gigabyte. Yes, of course, they do go higher, but it starts getting more and more outrageously expensive. Something that Nintendo should have had to factor in when designing the console. I am not a huge fan of forcing people to buy additional memory just to play their games. So they've delayed these cards from what was reportedly late 2018 A year and a half after the console launched, Nintendo should have had these cards ready to go day one. Even before day one, day zero, day minus 100. Just so developers could actually put their games on them if needed. But instead they have them purportedly ready a year and a half after release, and then they delay it again into 2019. That's right, Nintendo have delayed their 64GB game cards to 2019. As games are going to get bigger and bigger over the upcoming year, and then even more so into 2019, it does beg the question, will this affect Nintendo? It will and it won't, or should I say it will positively and it will negatively. Because to be honest, I don't foresee many developers or publishers actually using these cards. They cost more to manufacture, they're probably more awkward to manufacture because there's probably a different lead time on them. Nintendo probably don't have a huge stock of them saved up just because they're so awkward and not used as much. And with the huge licensing fee and manufacturing fee and all the extra fees that the developers and publishers have to use for them, I can still see companies just opting to use smaller cards. Many companies don't even use 32GB cards, they use 16GB cards and then force you to download extra on top of it, because the 32GB card would force you to charge more for the game, and a 64GB version would make you charge even more for the game, because Nintendo does need to work properly with third party here as well. Yes, we all know games like Breath of the Wild, Splatoon, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Odyssey. These games are all very small, which is generally what you see from a company who actually own and develop the system. But we all know that Nintendo can't survive on first-party titles alone. The Nintendo 64 proved it. The GameCube proved it. Hell, the Wii U exceptionally proved it. So Nintendo does need to work with third parties, and they need to make these tools available to third parties. Nintendo Switch has had a fantastic first year, but if support and development and whatever just dried up out of nowhere because of whatever reasons or whatever limitations, you would see a sharp decline instantly. Now here's the thing, like I said, I mentioned games are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger over the course of the year and a half and 2018 and 2019, but at the same time, Nintendo aren't really equipped for that as it is on a hardware side. They already struggle to run 2016 games. In fact, they run 2016 games at an unacceptable level as it is. Look at you, Doom, and the upcoming Nintendo Switch port of Wolfenstein 2. Granted, that's a 2017 game, but you get my point. And again, let's throw Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in there as well. When games are running at lower than lowest settings and lower than standard definition resolutions, do you really need all this size for such low quality textures and low quality resolutions? You can judge that all for yourself. Personally, I think this is a terrible move and a terrible situation. It's an absolute embarrassment that they didn't even have them available from day one. But Nintendo has never been the top of the whole smart business decision food chain. So let me know about all of this whole situation in the comments section below. What do you think is going to happen? Whenever they do come out, do you think they'll be overpriced and that developers will opt to not use them because they'll use smaller cards so they don't have to charge an exorbitant amount for their Switch version of the game just to maintain profit margins or whatever? Hell, do you think Nintendo could even possibly cancel the release of 64GB game cards, forcing everyone to buy increased storage again and again and again? Because let's face it, if you have to keep buying these third-party games, and maybe even first-party games, but we'll stick with third-party because that's generally where it seems to be. If you have to keep buying additional storage because of all these games requiring more storage than the Switch actually has, and more storage than the game cards can offer, people are going to start getting annoyed. You can preach the whole digital thing all you want, but when you have to fumble around with multiple micro SD cards, what's the difference from just fumbling around when you have multiple game cards? Let me know all that good stuff in the comments section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.